Hello and welcome to episode 237 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On the show today, I'll be joined by Mouse and More Adam, who is at the last day of public operation for Muppet Vision 3D at Disney's Hollywood Studios back in June. The last time that we talked on the show, we focused on what the closure of Muppet Vision 3D means to the parks, and that was part of our 3+ hour fundraiser episode for the victims of the Los Angeles wildfires. Today, we aren't going to spend too much time talking about what this means for the parks overall, but more what it was like to send this attraction out with style. Before we get started, I want to make a big push between now and the end of the year to add more subscribers at the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. It is 100% free, and it only takes about 30 seconds. Please help us out and click that button. In secret, for the past few months, I have been putting together content for a new YouTube channel that I'll be starting in the new year. I want to build up our subscriber count here so that I will be able to maintain the audience on both channels at the same time. There are plenty of reasons to be subscribed as well, because Destination D23 is coming up at the end of the month in Florida. We're going to talk about all of the big announcements to come out of that event in early September. The parks are changing drastically, and we love looking at the individual announcements through a broader lens. Right now, let's get to our main conversation. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you got to experience something that made me a little jealous after I had moved back to the Northeast. Even though you live in the Northeast, you were able to make your way down to Florida and Walt Disney World for the last day of Muppet Vision 3D. First of all, knowing you, I'm assuming this was something that you planned specifically so you could be there to say goodbye to this attraction. Am I right?
Yeah. Once when the day was announced, whenever that was in January, I think I had reserved the day for the park pass, and then between then and June, I had to build up to actually going, and so that's why I went that weekend. Yeah.
So I want to know, what was the atmosphere like, first of all? Was it a celebratory atmosphere? Were people happy to be there and everybody together to pay tribute to this attraction that they've loved since the opening of Hollywood Studios, or darn close to the opening of Hollywood Studios? Or was it sort of a somber atmosphere because a lot of people are quite upset about this change?
I think I didn't feel people were sad. I know people. I mean, I was sad. People are sad, but I think being there, at that point, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. So we have to sort of enjoy the moment and being with people. There were a lot of Muppet fans that are not necessarily Disney fans that were there. And though Muppet fans are they're a different type of person. They're artistic, they're creative, they are glass half full type people. So they were happy to be with others like them. And I mean, the reason why we were there was sad. I kept telling people, like, I wish this didn't have to be this way. I wish I wish this wasn't happening. So, but because it was happening, there's nothing we can do about it. People were generally upbeat. Nobody was cheering, like clapping up, jumping and clapping and that kind of stuff. But people were just trying to enjoy themselves and being there.
Well, how cool was it? Like you said, it wasn't necessarily a Disney audience. It was very much a Muppets audience. So even when you're there at Muppet Vision 3D, any other normal time, it was still mostly Disney fans. So was it at least fun to kind of have this situation that was almost like a Muppets convention? Because, I mean, we'll start talking later about some of the bigger name people who were, not that you're not a big name, Adam, but we'll talk about some of
Oh,
the big name people who were there. But was it fun to just see all of these Muppets people coming together to celebrate this thing one more time? Because, like you said, it was a different type of crowd than normal.
yeah, there were most. I spent 99% of the day in Muppets in the courtyard. Most of the people there had some type of Muppet something on, shirt. There were a lot of costumes. There were a lot of cosplay. There were some incredible um, attire that people were wearing, and I was shocked. Um, and there were people with like Muppet tattoos and people with Muppet merch that I've never seen before. It's a lot of it was like older stuff that maybe they had for a long time. There were a lot of older. There were well, I should say there were fans of all ages. There were people from I saw a woman who had to have been like in her 80s walking that queue. Was she a big Muppet fan? Was she there with her family just on a Disney trip and they happened to be there that week? I don't know, but it definitely drew everybody. But I definitely just being there and overhearing people's conversations. There were a lot of people there that were not familiar with the Disney lingo, the where the bathrooms are, where the food is. So I realized there are people here that probably haven't been to Hollywood studios in a long time, if ever. And they're here not because, like I said, they're not Disney fans, but because they're Muppet fans. So they're not used to, whatever Disney is trying to do with this. So it was, and that's how I could tell that there were people there that were there to just really experience that as opposed to anything else.
So you talk about that 80-year-old lady who was in the queue, and you're like, I don't know whether she was just there because her family was on a Disney trip. But from everything I saw from watching that day on social media, the line for Muppet Vision 3D all day was so long that I feel like if you got in that line, you wanted to do Muppet Vision 3D.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw it posted for 60 minutes. I think at the highest I saw was like 70 or 80 minutes. I don't think I ever waited more than 30. I think they were definitely inflating that number. I probably because they don't have enough space to hold everybody. Muppet Vision has an extended queue that ran along the when you're facing the entrance, ran along the right hand side of the building, and it ran all the way down to the end. And it has parody movie posters on the wall of like Muppets parodying old movies, some new movies too, like Pirates of the Caribbean, and old movies like Frankenstein, and that extended queue got used up. That they had us then going at sometimes going out of the courtyard area and into Galaxy's Edge, and then they were actually using part of the queue for Rise of the Resistance, the outdoor portion of Rise of Resistance queue. That's near where the tunnel is. They had us going through there. I don't know. If you're doing that, if you're there doing that, you must be there because you wanted to see Muppets. You're not there because you're trying to get everything done in Hollywood studios. I would think the family that has no idea what's going on probably would have skipped it because there was a lot of people there. They had the press penny machine on the other side of the courtyard where the old facade for the New York Streets of America was, and there was a line for that went probably 50, 60 feet and then wrapped and then went another 50, 60 feet back, double backed on itself, just for the press penny machine. So I think people I think if you were there and you had no idea what was going on, you probably just skipped through the whole thing. You're probably like, I don't know what's going on there, because there's just a ton of people in that area.
How many times did you get to do it the last day?
10 times.
Wow.
I watched it 10 times and I waited 12 times because 2 times I waited in the line, and then I got out of the line because I saw somebody right before I got into the theater. I saw somebody that I wanted to see, so I jumped out of the line and go said hello to them. Yeah. I ate at Pizza Rizzo twice, lunch and like 11 o'clock, and then at 4:35, because it closed at 5, I believe. So if like I didn't eat like that much, I could have got more. But I got there. I got the park opened for on-site guests at, I think, 8:30. I got there at 8:15. And that's when I found out they were handing out wristbands for the last show, so that there wouldn't be a scrum for people to get in the last show. They were handing out wristbands, which was nice, but they didn't advertise that they were doing that. So you only got that if you were there early and you knew to get there. And I just saw a post. Somebody posted on Twitter as I was parking my car in the parking lot. Somebody posted on Twitter, "Hey, they're handing out wristbands for the last show." And I ran from the parking lot into the park to get a wristband because I didn't want to. I had planned on doing the last show, and that made it a lot easier. But yeah, I did it the 10 times, waited 12, Pizza Rizzo twice, and then and that was it. Like I had rented a locker, so I went to the front a couple times to go change out the locker, and I didn't go to anywhere else in the park.
Did you do the press penny machine?
I had done that the day before, and I had gotten press pennies before that, especially after we found out it was going to close. I had gotten a couple sets before that. So I did not wait in that line the last day.
That was smart, probably, because that was something that I saw those pictures too. And like you described, that was a hefty line, and they had run out a few times in the weeks leading up. And I know that if they would have run out that last day and you would have been waiting in line for like 45 minutes and you missed one extra showing, that would have been a real bummer. How late did they go with Muppet Vision 3D that day?
Well, they went to park close, which that day I believe was 10. So they had us last show people with the wristbands line up at like 9 o'clock on the side of the building, and we all lined up like in like back and forth rows, and we didn't get into the theater until like 10:15. Because everybody had to go through the whole queue, and then what they ended up doing was we all got into the pre-show area, and the pre-show, like I was at the back of the line, so when I got into the pre-show area, the pre-show was almost over, and they announced that they would run it again so that everybody was in there for the last time to hear see the whole pre-show, and then this way you're not rushing through that, which was nice. So I'm glad they did that, because now the thing though is that pre-show room does not hold as many people as the theater holds, because the theater holds like 500 seats and the pre-show room does not hold 500 people. So I guess there were people that maybe still didn't get to see it because they were like in that hallway that leads up to the room. So I guess I kept trying to look back, and it was hard because it was packed. But and then in the theater itself for the last show, there was probably like 20 or so empty seats, which I think just means that they probably didn't hand out a wristband for every seat in case they wanted to give them out later on. Or maybe they just can't fit as many people as they used to because of the pre-show room not being as big as it could be. That's my guess.
And I know, like I said, we'll get to this in a little bit, but there were some people that I would call, dignitaries that were there that they probably wanted to make sure that if certain people showed up and decided they wanted to do the last show, they would have given them the chance to do that last show.
Possibly, although I'll be honest, I don't think Disney was really prepared. They were prepared for the last show with the wristbands. I don't think they were prepared for who was there and if something more was going to happen. And I would say something more didn't happen. Like, it's not like the whole cast of the Muppet Show. Not that a lot of them are not with us anymore, but it's not like a whole bunch of Muppet people showed up at the end. And I'm not mad or anything. I'm just saying, like, I don't think if they did show up, I don't think Disney was prepared for people like that to be there and to command a crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. In the time since we last talked about this, it has been announced that Animation Courtyard, which had Star Wars Launch Bay and some of those other things, was going to be turned into a real animation experience now. And I'm sure we'll get more details about that in the upcoming month here, especially with Destination D23 coming up at the end of this month. But I know one of the things that had us both upset when they announced the closure of Muppet Vision 3D and Muppet Courtyard was that Animation Courtyard was still there as this huge waste of space when there could have been the Monsters, Inc. ride and the Monsters, Inc. land that's now going to replace Muppet Courtyard and Muppet Vision 3D. We're like, well, you could have put all of that stuff there. Do you feel a little better about that announcement now? Because at least they are doing something. At least it's not this wasted space anymore. And it feels like they're doing something that does harken back to the original Hollywood studio. Well, Disney MGM Studios.
I don't know if you're not gonna like my answer.
That's fine.
There's multiple parts to this. Am I glad that they're getting rid of Launch Bay and doing something else? Yes. It's interesting. They announced this. They had the two concept art pieces they had was just the outside. They didn't have any concept art of what you're actually going to be doing inside, which is a choice. Like whatever the attraction is, based when you read it, it sounds like it's like a walk. If you're unfamiliar, Launch Bay has a seated theater, and then there's a open area that's like a walk through, and there's glass cases where you can have things behind glass. And so my understanding, and they in the announcement they said the theater will still be there, and they will put something in there to show. And then it sounds like it's going to be just exhibits and hands-on activities in this open room, which on the surface is great. It's better. I think it sounds like it's better than what's there now, because Launch Bay is literally just like a Star Wars museum and then meet and greets for like two characters. So my guess is they're going to have meet and greets for other characters there, like and nicer. When I say nicer, more kid-friendly characters other than Darth Vader, right? And then they're going to probably have hands-on like things, which, like I said, on the surface is great. But what that does also tell me is that the office building that is behind there is staying. They're not ripping that out. And to me, that is the area that needs to go because you have an office building and a lot of the people that work in there aren't support for Hollywood Studios. They're other Disney jobs. You have an office building in the middle of a theme park, which is taking up valuable space for stuff for us fans to do. And it's office building that could be put anywhere. And there's plenty of space on property that they could put it, and there's plenty of like office space in the town of Celebration. It's a good temporary fix thing. I'm still upset that they're not getting rid of everything and putting something there for putting something that all of us could do. You're not adding capacity. You're just exchanging one thing for another. And the new thing sounds like it's gonna be really cool. And you're right. It does go back to what MGM and Hollywood Studios stood for at the beginning, a working studio. And so maybe we're gonna like see a little bit more of like how animation is made and what kind of tricks they can do. And that's good. I think that part's good. And I'm glad they're doing something there. I just wish that it was flattening it and putting real stuff there for us to do, and not and if that would have been monsters, great. If it wasn't monsters, if we still were losing Muppets and monsters was still going where Muppets is, but they were going to put something new, fun there, then I would be a little more excited. So it's like bittersweet. I'm happy they're doing this. It's sweet that they're doing this, but it's bitter. It's leaving me a little bit of a taste like, is this the best you guys could do at this spot? You could have done a little bit more, but you don't want to. You still want to keep those offices there.
Are you almost worried that it's almost turning into animation launch bay? Like it's just going to be the same thing, only it's now themed towards animation instead of Star Wars?
I do, and the fact that they didn't show it. First of all, why did they announce this on a Tuesday in July when D23 is coming? But they still could have just announced that it's closing and then not say what the replacement is until Destination D23. Like they could have done some funny things with that. But why didn't they show something that's going to be inside? It's just very strange that they didn't do that. And maybe they will at D23. Maybe they will.
I think that's the hope, is that we get more information about this at Destination D23 this year, which I think we're hoping there's a lot of information that's going to come from that. And over the past couple years, Disney has definitely been dumping the bad news. And I think that they're hoping that they can dump the bad news before Destination D23 so that all of those announcements can feel like positives. Yeah. Because we've already heard all of the negatives. Because, you might not be 100% happy with what's going on with Animation Courtyard, but even you'll admit that it's still better than what's there now.
Oh yeah. If it's, and I think it's going to be more appealing to more people, because I think Disney animation appeals to more people than Star Wars Launch Bay does. Because like my parents could care less about. My parents are like 65. My parents are not Star Wars fans, so they could care less about Star Wars. But if I told them, hey, we're gonna go into this room and they're gonna have like effects that show how they animated Cinderella from 1950 versus how they animated, Frozen 2 from 2019, whatever year that was. You could see how like things change over time. They'll be into that. It's definitely more of an 8 to 80 type experience and theme that's better off than. And I'm not trying to like diminish Star Wars, because I like Star Wars. But it's also weird when you have 3 different Star Wars areas in that whole park. So I think it's going to make it a little bit more sense.
And I think they are going to find a place, at least for those meet and greets, at least the Darth Vader meet and greet. It was always kind of weird having a Chewbacca meet and greet when Chewbacca was in Galaxy's Edge anyway. So the BB-8 and the Darth Vader meet and greets, I think they can find a place to put them, and then you're expanding what you have in the park instead of just continuing to replace. So if you move them somewhere, even if it's, doing something with the queue to Star Tours, because you don't need as big of a queue because Star Tours barely ever has that long of a line anymore. maybe you can fit Darth Vader, fit BB-8 into that situation, and then all of a sudden you're adding instead of just
Yeah.
replacing. And you mentioned that office building, which for some reason they're treating it like it's on a Native American burial ground or something, like they can't build on that land. But it is definitely a chance for them to expand. And neither of us hate Star Wars. Like, we both like Star Wars. And I think that having a Darth Vader meet and greet is great, but it was taking up way too much space for what you were getting. The line was always like maybe a half hour, and
Yeah.
it was taking up this gigantic building. So I think that that's a positive moving forward. We're going to get more information about the Muppets roller coaster, I'm sure, at Destination D23. We might get a date for that Muppets roller coaster. Are you getting more cautiously optimistic about it, or are you still a little bitter that it's going to be something that is not as accessible? I mean, you're a big 8 to 80 fan, right? Like, you like the things that are accessible to almost everybody. I like that too. But
Yeah.
we are getting a Muppets roller coaster, so at least if we get it, let's hope it's good, right?
Yeah. But we already know what it is, right? We already know how the coaster is. We already know it goes really fast and it zips. It's not a Guardians type coaster where they have show scenes that you can pivot and turn and slow down. It's not that type of coaster. It's not a Seven Dwarfs Mine Train coaster like where you have show scenes. It's like a speeding bullet. So you can only show so much. I'm happy we're getting a Muppets ride. I hope they. I don't know. Like we don't know what they're doing for songs. We don't know if it's Muppets singing songs, their own songs, or if it's Muppets singing other covers of rock and roll songs. Um, or if it's not even any of that. If it's just different rock and rollers. Who knows? um, I hope. I think but I'm optimistic too that there'll be not that it's all about merch, but there will be a merch store for us to finally buy Muppet merchandise at the exit. And I have no doubt that they'll theme the exterior, the carts and everything to Muppet stuff. I have no doubt they'll do that. But it is sad and unfortunate that the Muppets will be just limited as of now to a coaster that not everybody can ride and not everybody wants to ride. And that's understandable.
And the area that used to be Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy has now been turned into the villain show. But we know, or at least we think we know, we have been told there will be a villain's land at Magic Kingdom. We've been told there's other stuff that was coming that never ended up coming to fruition. But
Exactly.
I think we are getting a villain's land in Magic Kingdom. Do you think that it's all possible? Are you holding out any hope that that could then become the new Muppet Vision 3D building?
Yeah, I am. I mean, they're not going to knock the building down. They're going to keep it there. It's not going to make any sense to have a villain show there once when that villain's land opens in Kingdom, right? It's not going to make any sense to have that. So I don't want to speculate on rumors, but Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son, who runs the Jim Henson Company, was interviewed about a bunch of things, and he was talking about Muppet Vision 3D, and he said that everything has been packed away securely so that it could return, which tells me that they are not auctioning things off. They're not going to sell stuff, which is good because they could sell that stuff, and there are super fans out there that would buy it. John Stamos and what's the other guy? All the Lopez brothers will buy all that stuff. But so that's encouraging. And I think the way he talks is he doesn't know for sure, but I think he has like some kind of inclination of like what would happen with that. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that.
You know, the second time I ever rode Tiana's Bayou Adventure, it was with Brooks Lopez.
Oh wow, nice.
I didn't realize that the guy who was with me is actually a bigger basketball fan than even I am, and he noticed it. So, um, before we end this, speaking of celebrities being at Walt Disney World, there were a few, I would say, Muppets dignitaries who were there on the last day, and I know you got to meet at least one of them. So, why don't you talk about that quickly?
Yeah, so I Steve Whitmire was there, who is the voice of Rizzo. He's the voice, well, not anymore. He's a former Muppet performer, but he's known for being the voice of Rizzo the Rat, Bean Bunny. He also was the voice of Kermit when Jim Henson passed away, so he was the next Kermit. And he was there as a guest of a fan site that had invited him and some bunch of other former Imagineers and people that worked on the show. I met him outside of um, Indiana Jones Sun Spectacular, and I talked to him for a couple minutes. Very nice guy. And then in the courtyard, I saw on Twitter that somebody said that Heather Henson, Jim Henson's daughter, was there, and she's not as like her face is not easily recognizable. So I just saw the outfit that she was wearing on that picture that the person posted, and I realized, okay, I got to look for this woman who's in like this. I don't know what it was. It was like a white sweater or something. I don't know how she was wearing I remember saying to myself, I don't know how she's wearing a sweater in Florida. It's so hot down here. But so I was in line for the photo at the fountain, and the friends I was with said, "Hey, she just went to the bathroom," and I looked. And then she's walking into the bathroom, the Gonzo's Royal Flush bathroom. And I said, I cannot follow her into the bathroom. I'll get kicked out forever. I said, I'm going to have to watch the exit and wait for her to leave to get out. So I stared at that bathroom for what felt like forever, but it was probably 5 minutes. And she came out, and then I walked up to her and I talked to her for a couple of minutes and took a photo. And she was there also because of the fan site that invited her, and she was the only member of the family that had gone. And I think everybody was invited. It just doesn't seem like everybody is. They're definitely not like into crowds. When I first saw her, she definitely was a little like reserved. But I think as the day went on, I think she recognized that these people were here because of something that her father did, and I think she definitely opened up to the crowd more because when she walked in for the last time, she spoke to the crowd that was assembled at the entrance, and just thanked everybody for coming, and she was taking pictures with everybody, and so I think she opened up and realized it. And then I did meet Brooke Lopez in the pre-show area, the pre-show room. I did not get a photo of him. He was with his kid. He had his kid on his shoulder, but I said hello to him, and he didn't have and Heather Henson and Whitmire did not have plaids with them. They did not have any sort of entourage. They were just there, on their own. So that's why when I was saying before, I don't know if Disney was ready. Like, I was surprised that they didn't have any handlers. To me, that just means that Disney wasn't aware that these people were showing up until it happened. And Heather Henson, like I said, she's not a recognizable figure. So if you don't know that's her, you're not even gonna like care. So they probably didn't need to do anything with that, but the other two guys, maybe they should have or could have.
Yeah, it is a little hard for Brooke Lopez to hide because he's so tall.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. He also goes to the parks so frequently that he's used to making himself kind of blend in with the scenery a little bit because he is such a regular. But that's such a great story. Are you glad that you set aside that time to make sure you could say goodbye to Muppet Vision 3D?
Oh yeah, I'm glad I went. I'm glad that the people were there. I'm glad I had friends that were there that showed up that I was able to be with. Like I said in the beginning, I wish this didn't have to happen at all. But like, what's that old saying? I don't know if it's Dr. Seuss. Somebody said, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." So
Right.
I'm just trying to smile that and laugh that it happened. So
Mouse and More, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great having you on the show.
thanks, Rick, for having me. Appreciate it.
This has been episode 237 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We will be back next Thursday with more Muppets. I'll be flying solo on the show to do another episode in my series about former Disney chairman and CEO Michael Eisner. It was during Eisner's tenure that Muppet Vision 3D opened at Disney MGM Studios, and it was in the last full year of his tenure that Disney acquired the Muppets' intellectual property. That will be next week on the podcast. Until then, have a great week.